FCC chairman's threat to revoke ABC's broadcast license over comments made by Jimmy Kimmel. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also discuss how artificial intelligence is affecting the labor market with Fred Oswald, a current member of the National Artificial Intelligence Advisory Committee.
And I'm Frank Billingsley, plus Houston-based artist Karen Navarro will join us to talk about her new project, Discovery Green's Chroma Collective.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says history will not forget Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist who was assassinated nearly 2 weeks ago during an outdoor rally on a Utah college campus. Trump eulogized Kirk during a memorial service in Arizona yesterday that heavily reflected Kirk's Christian faith.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica.
Trump apologizing to Kirk's widow, who struck a very different tone from the president's as she declared that she did forgive her husband's killer. NPR's Luke Garrett has more.
Erica Kirk spoke for nearly an hour at a packed State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. She remembered her last moments with Kirk and then forgave his alleged killer.
I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do.
Erica Kirk then assured the crowd that she will lead Kirk's Turning Point USA and its mission for young men in America.
To all the men watching around the world, accept Charlie's challenge and embrace true manhood.
She also thanked the Second Lady, Usha Vance, for her comfort in the days following Kirk's assassination. Luke Garrett, NPR News.
Erica Kirk embraced the Trump at the end of the president's remarks as a choral rendition of America the Beautiful rang out from speakers at the event. A 22-year-old man faces aggravated murder, firearms, and obstruction charges in connection with Charlie Kirk's killing. Utah prosecutors have said they will seek the death penalty. The war in Gaza will figure prominently at this week's UN General Assembly in New York. France is set to announce its recognition of a Palestinian state, as have several other major Western countries, while the U.S. and Israel stand opposed. Despite the growing international push for a sovereign Palestinian state, many living in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, and especially in Gaza, say there's little to celebrate as the war rages on. Here's NPR's Carrie Kahn.
40-year-old Mohammed al-Najjar lives in a tent with his family of 7 in Gaza City, which is under Israeli evacuation orders. He says recognition has no value. With the war and Israel's genocide continuing, he says, they eliminate people, trees, everything. What Palestinian state is the world talking about, he asks. Israel's prime minister says recognition rewards Hamas for terrorism. He's threatened retaliation. France and Saudi Arabia hold meetings this week on Palestine recognition at the UN. A Saudi official who was not authorized to speak to the press told NPR it informed Israel via Washington that any retaliation is, quote, outright rejected. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. Local authorities are looking into why another body was found in a local bayou this weekend. This is the 5th body that Houston police has discovered over the past week. The latest was recovered in the Buffalo Bayou on Saturday morning. Officials say this happened near York Street. Last Monday, 2 bodies were discovered, one in Brays Bayou, another in Greens. One of the people recovered there was a University of Houston student. Last Tuesday, a body was pulled from White Oak Bayou, and Thursday, a drowning was reported after someone jumped off a bridge and never resurfaced. We'll keep you updated with the latest on this here on News 88.7. Meanwhile, you may have noticed an uptick in little green birds buzzing around lately. Our Alexandra Hart reports.
From now until November, millions of hummingbirds will move through the Houston region as they head to Mexico and Central America for the winter. Many of them will cross the Gulf in a nonstop flight. Wyatt Egelhoff is sanctuary manager at Houston Audubon. He says the region is an important stop on the birds' journey southward.
For those that are going to cross the Gulf, it's the last point of land before they make that crossing. For those that decide not to cross the Gulf and go around, It's, when their first interaction with the Gulf, right? So they get to here, they stop, they kind of get reoriented, and then they bump their way down the coast.
Egelhoff says you can help hummingbirds by putting out feeders with homemade, not store-bought, hummingbird food and by planting native plants. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
And the Houston Texans are still looking for their first win of the regular season after falling to the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday, 17-10, the final in that one. Jeff Balke is a writer for the Houston Press. He says there is one clear problem.
Offensively, they're awful. And, you can really look at the bizarre and awkward play calling. You can look at the fact that the offensive line is still allowing way too much pressure on C.J. Stroud. You can look at the fact that C.J. Stroud hasn't been particularly accurate this season.
Balke was a guest on Houston Matters earlier this morning. The Texans will look for their first win of the year against Tennessee at home next week. Currently 88 degrees here on the UH campus, high of 90 today. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Welcome.
Hello.
Happy Monday. We are back with a full show today.
As opposed to a half show?
Well, there's just a lot to talk about. And I think that on Hello Houston, a lot of times, we are news consumers like everybody else. And so over the weekend, we are watching the news. We're hearing what's going on. We're jumping on our social media. And so to chime in on Monday, and there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah, well, let's talk about your weekend. What'd you do?
I actually went to Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church in 3rd Ward over the weekend. Jane Edwards is one of our listeners, and she had invited me. As you all know, I am dabbling into gardening, and they had a fabulous...
We've not seen anything. You haven't brought any tomatoes.
I haven't, not yet.
Studio.
We're in the process of planting seeds, and I know nothing. I can barely keep my kids alive, but it's one of those things where we... They had this event at the church right in 3rd Ward, and it was a fabulous event, and it was incredible to see how many people came out within the community. I think they had about 1,000 people come out.
Wow!
And it wasn't just a farmer's market; it was there was an education aspect to it. So it was a great weekend. I got out of my neighborhood and popped into 3rd Ward, and I was reminded about how incredible our city is.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you guys?
I went to Armando's Friday night. I love Armando's.
Oh, Armando's is fabulous.
Then, Saturday, a friend turned 90. I know. Wow. I've known him since he was 55. I've known him a long time. And so he had a birthday party, and a big fancy affair. It was great fun. 90
is something to celebrate.
And he looks terrific. He wears it well. And then on Sunday, my golf tournament kickoff party. My golf tournament is October 13th.
And the golf tournament raises funds for
Legacies, which Legacy is community-based healthcare. And the particular funds go to their school-based programs.
Yeah.
So that we can get doctors/nurses' offices in, I think, 33 underserved schools now.
Wow.
Because a lot of parents don't have time to take their child to the doctor.
Right.
And so these nurses are able to treat them and take care of them without having to take get parents that have to get off of work or whatever.
And more than ever, we need to be supporting our communities.
Well, you got to be healthy.
Yeah.
Got to be healthy.
What about you, Ernie?
Saturday night, Gulf Coast Film and Video Festival, a small film festival that we have down in the Seabrook area there every year. I had the honor of emceeing this year, and that's for independent film and to excite the film industry in this part of the of our state and our country. And so it was nice to be there to celebrate these winners. And then yesterday I was over at the Botanic Gardens, and we had the artist on. We were talking about rich soil, that exhibit. So the artist was here in town, and Harper Water from Houston Ballet was with us. And we talked with the crowd about the art. And it was a lovely day to do it, Frank. Thank you for nice weather. It rained a little bit and kind of scared some people away, but it was short and fast.
Yeah, this is such a perfect example of our Hello Houston team. We really like to be out in our community. And so if you guys have an event coming up or there's something that you want us to just pop in, let us know and we'll try to be there to support you all.
Without rain.
Without rain. What's coming up, Frank? What do we have going on?
There's a cold front coming up. I know. There's a cold front that's going to be on the way it's our first fall front. It will come in Wednesday.
And today is the first official day.
It starts fall today.
And just like a little bit after our show wraps for today, about 1:17, is that the 1:19? It becomes fall.
The autumnal equinox.
That is
as the sun moves from where to where? I thought so. As the sun moves from the Tropic of Cancer across the equator to the Tropic of Capricorn, that is why it is called the autumnal equinox.
Okay, so I know it's not current obsessions today, but I have been obsessed with a gas grill. A neighbor moved, left me a gas grill, never used it, finally turned it on, and it didn't have all of the burners working. So I became obsessed with having to buy a gas grill. So I finally bought a gas grill, and now I've got it set up, and I want to use it tonight. Frank, is it going to rain on me? That's what I want to know.
Tonight? No.
Okay.
Tonight, no.
We're going to finally get to grill.
And just to clarify, Fritz is fact-checking us. Fall officially starts just after the show is over today at about 1:15 p.m.
1:19, Fritz.
There
we got to
you
go with Frank on this one. You know, I got to support my Frank. There you go. But also, talking about the news, there was a lot going on this weekend, and we saw the Charlie Kirk Memorial was yesterday, had a lot of eyes on that. And also, there were lots of headlines. There were polls coming out that were fascinating. If we get to any of those, I hope we can talk to that a little bit. But Celeste, as always, take us into the headlines.
Yes, thank you, Ernie. Over the weekend, celebrities and politicians alike continued to chime in on their thoughts about ABC's cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel. Senator Ted Cruz on Friday said the Federal Communications Commission chairman's threat to revoke ABC's broadcast license over comments made by Kimmel was, quote, dangerous as hell, a far more critical stance than Cruz's Republican colleagues have taken since the late-night host was booted from the air. A free speech argument erupted earlier this week after ABC's indefinitely suspended Kimmel, hours after the FCC chairman, Brandon Carr, had condemned his monologue about the man accused of killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk. On his show, Kimmel had denounced the MAGA movement for, quote, desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. Cruz added that there was no love lost between him and Kimmel, who has ridiculed the Texas senator over the years. He acknowledged Kimmel's show was losing viewers and said he had lied in his monologue. But Cruz went on to also say the federal government's involvement is a slippery slope for conservatives who have long complained about being silenced by the media. Cruz said a defamation lawsuit against Kimmel or ABC would have been a preferable approach, and he reiterated that while he agreed Kimmel should be off the air, the federal government should not be part of that decision. What do you think? Do you agree with Senator Ted Cruz? Now is the time to give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can also text us at that same number or send us an email at talk@hellohouston.org.
Kind of fascinating point. We're seeing some division from the right on this issue as not standing 100% with what the White House was pushing for, or the FCC, however you want to look at it. I guess my first reaction when I saw that was, okay, Ted Cruz is getting ready to run for president. He's starting to make his separation a little bit from the current administration, but he is going in line with what a lot of the MAGA supporters are in favor of, which is this free speech, which is causing some division within the Republican, the far-right Republican Party. And so I think it's interesting. I think he's trying to find his path. and also at the same time gathering his supporters, which would be the far-right MAGA.
Be a sensible Republican.
Characterize it as you wish.
I would say this feels very significant because it seems like most Republicans in general are afraid in any way to seem like they are being critical or disapproving anything with the Trump administration. And I would almost say for the exact reason where they don't want to seem that way because they do want to continue to run and be relevant within the party. But overall, I generally agree with Senator Cruz. I don't think he needs to be making comments specifically about what was happening. If Kimmel should be on air or not, that's ABC essentially to decide. But the government should not be making threats, right? And the FCC basically made the only real threat they have, which is to revoke licenses.
Well, and there's a big controversy about these television stations buying, these broadcast companies buying more and more broadcasts and these mergers taking place. Because you can imagine if one group was in control of the majority of television stations across the country, then they would pretty much rule the editorial content. And that's not what we want. We don't want one. That would be like just everybody having a Fox station or everybody having an MSNBC station.
Right. And I do believe the FCC does have regulations where a station cannot own a certain majority
That's actually what's at the base of this.
Yes, the marketability.
That's more guideline than law. That's what's happening is.
But the merger needs approval by the FCC because of the amount of coverage it would take on. In the past, you could only cover so much of the nation percentage-wise with what you could do. They are asking for a larger chunk of it. If they get that approval, I think it's 80, something around 80%.
80%.
They would have. Yeah.
And I believe that
so the FCC has to approve that merger. And the idea is that these stations, this whole motion was because they wanted to curry favor with the administration to get this merger to go through, and that's why they pulled Kimmel.
When I first got in television in 1982, I believe it was 10 was the maximum number of markets you could be in, which is why ABC owned L.A., San Francisco, Chicago, Houston,
Right. Networks could only own so many stations, and the rest had to be independent stations. The network could only own so many. Things like Nexstar and these conglomerates
and Sinclair
don't have that same guideline. You can only have so many O&Os, owned and operated is what they're called.
And again, 713-440-8870 now is the time to join the conversation on Hello Houston. Let's go to the phone lines. Cyrus from Richmond. Welcome, Cyrus. Welcome to Hello Houston. What are your thoughts or questions?
Thank you for letting me on the air. I've been watching this whole fiasco going on for the entire week. The only thing that I find very objectionable is that very few of the stations are playing the entire Jimmy Kimmel clip. They are playing the first part of it. He then goes to a clip of Trump talking about a question that was asked of him of how he felt about Charlie Kirk's assassination, and he goes straight into talking about his ballroom and his beautiful ballroom, and he comes back to Jimmy, and he said, this is it. This is the way the president answers the question about Charlie Kirk's, and everyone's going on about Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, what about the way the president answered his question? It's outrageous. I've been in this business for 60 years. I'm retired now. I've been in PBS stations as executive producer and at the BBC for 12 years. So I know a little bit about this, I can say. And this is outrageous.
Cyrus, thank you for your comments. To clarify a little bit, so some will argue that Jimmy Kimmel's initial statements were all building up to the joke he wanted to do, which is to Cyrus's point. So he talks about the first part about what was happening, then they cut to the White House asking the president about how he is grieving or feeling about the loss of Charlie Kirk, and he gives a quick response to that and then says, but look, we're building the ballroom. And then it cuts back to Jimmy Kimmel with his joke about we're in the fourth stage of grieving, which is construction. So the whole thing was the lead up to the Kimmel joke, which is more of a joke toward the president.
Right. The punchline was the
Right.
president, not essentially what was happening to
Right.
Charlie
So some
Kirk.
will argue that the reason this got the attention it did was because the president didn't like the being mocked about his response to the question about Charlie Kirk, and that's what was
Spurred
the ire
this.
of the president. There's a lot of confusion back and forth about that. I do want to, though, also throw into the mix as we're talking, then we'll grab another call. As this is going on and the question of where do we have the right to limit what we know and how we share information, the Pentagon and Pete Hegseth made a statement today talking about now how the Pentagon will not allow journalists, or it's requiring credentialed journalists who cover the Pentagon to sign a pledge not to publish or disclose information that has not been authorized for release. That includes unclassified information, and that violators of that might lose their press credentials, which the New York Times, Washington Post, even NPR are saying it compromises the constitutional protections and democratic transparency. So this is happening just today as we're on the air. There does seem to be an assault, again, on coverage of information, and the press in this country started with the Jimmy Kimmel in our attention, but not the beginning of where this issue has been of concern.
Again, 713-440-8870. Let's head to Sandy from Sealy. Sandy, welcome to Hello Houston. What are your comments or questions?
Oh, I always enjoy your show, but I thought it was hysterically funny when Ted Cruz said someone should be off the air because they lie. And if that was the case, all politicians should be off the air.
The point.
Truth seems to be a challenging point for politicians at times. Continue.
Well, that's basically it. I'm a big proponent of everybody should have free speech, whether I agree with it or not.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the whole point of free speech. Thank you, Sandy. You don't have to agree with the speech, but you have to agree with people have the right to express what they're thinking, feeling, their concerns. That doesn't also remove the responsibility for what you say. You are still responsible for what you say, but you do have the right to say it.
Well, a text says, hello, for the first time in my life, I am in agreement with Ted Cruz, at least in what regards the fact that the government has no role in deciding who is or isn't on air. That should always be the people. I mean, we've lived and died by ratings and forever, you know, and either people watch you or listen to you or they don't.
Right.
And if they don't, then in the commercial aspect, the broadcasters will find out, and the ratings will suffer, and people won't buy as many commercials, and so your revenues go down. It's a pretty simple formula. Mm-hmm. And so to start playing games with, we're going to take this person off the air because we don't like what they said against the president, is an absolute assault on the Constitution.
Well, excuse me if I paraphrase here, but we moved forward with this when the president spoke on his plane coming back from the UK, where then he even took it to, you know, if people say bad story, and I'm paraphrasing, I know, but if it's a negative story about me, maybe that's not in the best interest of the people, and we should look at their licenses. And so it's now moving beyond this merger area where there was maybe concern into should the White House be looking, or should even the FCC be looking at individual licenses because of the way they report on someone. If it's an unfavorable story, do you get then challenged and have your license pulled?
Well,
Some stories are going to be ugly.
And another thing, though, is ABC canceled Roseanne after she put out some racist tweets back in 2018. So I think that we also have to be careful that we're saying, oh, this is all starting with Jimmy Kimmel. But we have seen there have been other people that have been canceled and
Megyn
pulled.
Kelly was taken off the air from NBC.
From NBC. And so I think that a lot of people are sitting here and saying, well, Jimmy Kimmel also had low ratings. It was about time. And we have to be careful that this isn't just starting with Kimmel, right? We know that
Kimmel
this has happened
was the second
before.
highest rated evening late night talk show, so it wasn't really low ratings, lower than what? All of television's landscape ratings have gone down. So, but yes, the system has regulated itself in some way when they found things that were objectionable. Then, you know, there's a responsibility back to who holds the license. We have to look at our license says certain things that we do and don't do and how we do it, and we are beholden to that, and that's how it has to be.
And let me just maybe make an assertion here that Stephen Colbert was released or going to be released at the end of this broadcast year in May. They claim it's low ratings, But Trump sued CBS because of 60 Minutes and won a $15 million lawsuit. Who's to say that part of that deal wasn't, oh, and by the way, let's get rid of this guy? Because Trump's very vocal. We get rid of the talk show host at night, The View, he wants to get rid of them. And anyone who's come out against this administration.
And anybody who's looked at Red Project 2025.
He wants to silence the voices of Americans.
For Stephen Colbert, though, for a point of reference, there was also another merger going on, and they were seeking FCC approval for that merger, and some belief is that was in the body of it was get rid of Colbert, and
but
the merger
CBS was smart enough to say, "Oh, we're taking him off because of low ratings," and didn't cause this kind of controversy. ABC at least was honest. It said, "Well, we're going to get rid of Kimmel because we're afraid of the FCC."
Brandon Carr flat out said, I mean, it was a threat.
Yes.
You know,
Make
there was
this
they
easier.
were. You can make
it the easy way, or we can do it the hard way.
And to be sure, it was Nexstars. It was Nexstars merge. Nexstars the one that told ABC, if you don't take Kimmel off the air, we are going to take him off the air. And
I think they
that
had
really
announced
is what
that their
ABC's
stations weren't going to be airing Kimmel,
right?
And
that's what I meant. Yeah.
Right, you need your coverage to make your money.
713-440-8870. Ruben from Rosenberg is on the line. Welcome to Hello Houston, Ruben.
Thank you for having me, ma'am.
What is your comment or question?
Well, the question that I have is where do we draw the line? The president himself said that he likes to go against the people that don't look at the same view that he has. So my question is do we, the people, elect the president, or he just going for his own goodwill for his people, for his own sons, for his own family, for the people that get around him? As far as I know, we have freedom of speech in this country, but not anymore. If you're going to say anything against the president, might as well bury yourself or get out of the business, because he's going to put you out of business. The way I see it here is we starting to see another Mexico here. If you guys wanted to elect a Mexican president, you have it on the office now. This guy does whatever he wants. He quiets whoever he wants. And if he doesn't like your view with you guys, he took money out of you guys because you guys said the truth. You guys are not biased. So he took the money away from you, thinking that he could put you guys out of business. But he doesn't understand that the people elected the man, not himself. The way I see it for the new Constitution is, and it's not we, the people, is I'm Donald Trump going to run this country to the bone, because that's what he's doing, and I just don't understand it. Where do we draw the line versus being freedom of speech and versus being, okay, I'm going to watch what I'm saying because the president's going to come and get me later on if I don't do what he said.
Yeah. Ruben, thank you for your comments.
Well, the courts draw the lines, but then you worry a little bit about the courts.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's very interesting, right? We do have people that have a lot of cultural experience, that have lived in other countries, that have experienced this firsthand, or maybe not experienced this. When I say this, have seen other countries in their country and government, how their government works. Living in this country, we're perhaps seeing another way of how our government is working.
You can look at when the president says fake news, that what is he actually saying when he says that? It tends to be news coverage that isn't what he wants or isn't flattering to him suddenly becomes fake. It's not that the news itself is not being reported accurately. It's not that there aren't reporters working very hard to cover the stories. If their outcomes don't match what the administration wants, then they get labeled as the fake news, that they're a threat, that they're...
And I've got to say it, I'm not a big late night TV watcher. I'm usually in bed by 9. I have been watching Stephen Colbert, and the way he is covering it's pretty clever and pretty funny.
Well, it's interesting. We talk about late night
great.
television, but the truth of the matter is late night TV now, late night talk shows are a conduit to make the clips that run all day long the next day. And so many more of us will see what happened on the late night TV as YouTube clips or out there in social media. Yeah. So they know what they're doing. They're kind of producing these moments and sending them out. So when they talk about the ratings being low, I go back to the fact the ratings in traditional broadcasts may be low, but they are having a huge cultural impact on what we talk about, what we see, and the comments we hear.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Fred Oswald, a professor of psychology at Rice University and a current member of the National Artificial Intelligence Advisory Committee, about how artificial intelligence is affecting the labor market. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
With federal support gone, Houston Public Media needs a stronger foundation for the future. The Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund is our response to ensure this service remains strong, stable, and community-powered. Your gift today helps us stay on the air tomorrow and the day after that. Give now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Hi, I'm Manoush Zamarodi, and our world is changing so fast. On the TED Radio Hour, we invite innovators, researchers, and activists to unpack those changes with us.
Just about all companies are becoming technology companies or technology-enabled companies.
Listen to the TED Radio Hour from NPR every week for conversations that will deepen your understanding of our changing world.
The TED Radio Hour, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
Moments after Charlie Kirk was shot on a Utah campus, graphic videos of his killing spread widely online.
Social media rewards this kind of extreme content. People aren't just sharing it, they are making money off of it. They're gaining followers off of it.
I'm Elsa Chang, the emotional and political toll of exposure to violent imagery on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Support comes from Carr, Riggs & Ingram, CPAs and Advisors, a top 25 nationally ranked full-service accounting and advisory firm offering tax, audit, accounting, consulting, and advisory services. Learn more at cricpa.com. Support comes from Elmore, communicating with clarity and inspiration, collaborating with executive leadership to create expert internal and external communications strategy. Elmore, listen, clarify, communicate. More at elmorepr.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The U.S. job market is showing signs of strain. Unemployment has edged upward in recent months, and layoffs have made frequent headlines throughout the year. While a variety of factors are driving this shift, one in particular is drawing increased attention: artificial intelligence. Major companies like Salesforce, Indeed, and Glassdoor have pointed directly to AI adaptation as a reason for job cuts. As this technology continues to reshape industry, it's raising important questions about the future of work. Who's at risk? Who stands to benefit? And how fast are these changes actually happening? Joining us today is Fred Oswald, the Herbert S. Autry Professor of Social Sciences at Rice University and a current member of the National Artificial Intelligence Advisory Committee, which advises the President and the Secretary of Commerce on a wide range of topics relevant to AI and national prosperity. So, Fred, welcome to the program. Are you really Fred, or are you AI Fred?
Thank you for having me, and I think an AI avatar would say that I'm Fred, so...
Okay, so we wouldn't know. If you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870. I asked that question in jest, but in today's day and age, it could be hard to tell.
Yeah, that's right. AI, the forces at play with AI blur the boundaries between reality and what is a new reality with technology and the information and misinformation that can be contained as AI gets engaged into the workforce, whether it's customer service or medical advice or helping fill out a spreadsheet.
Yeah, but Fred, we talk a lot about AI and we speak about it very generally, and we use it in contexts like, affecting the labor market. Have you all spoken with any labor workers, and you can give us an example, that have actually been phased out of their job by AI?
Yeah, definitely. Let me preface this, though, first by thanking you for having me on the show, and also the National AI Advisory Committee is actually in a suspension right now. It was active during the Biden administration, and it's currently being reconstituted. So there's a call for new members joining that committee. I'm also compelled to say that I'm not representing the committee here. They make me say that, but anyway, we're in a pause currently. But to answer your question, you're right that AI can have multiple effects happening at the same time for the same types of jobs. So, for example, AI could be replacing the tasks of that are more routine, like what paralegals do, or when drafting contracts or completing routine spreadsheets. Perhaps AI can be doing that. Now, what are the downstream effects of that? Does that change a person's job so that new roles are being taken on, or roles that were part of the job get emphasized more? So, for example, a customer service person may be able to focus more on the human customer experience because the routine inventory type jobs or filling out reports, those types of tasks are done by AI. That would transform a job. But on the other hand, another possibility is a rate of concerns that jobs may be replaced. And what are the implications of that for employment? What are the implications for education? What should kids, young adults be majoring in college or thinking about in high school as they transition into the workforce? It's very unpredictable, and yet we know it's happening. So that's kind of the best answer I can offer given this changing landscape. New jobs may emerge as well as a function of AI, right? That the new technology affords new possibilities for work, just like when the internet came into being.
You know, Fred, this is Frank Billingsley, and I was a TV weatherman for a long time, and I asked a talent coach, is AI going to replace me as a TV weatherman? And he, I think, wisely said, no, the guy who understands AI is going to replace you as a TV weatherman. So there is something about learning and understanding this technology. And we all know the old Katie Couric, I think it was Katie Couric and Brian Gumbel being taught about what is called the internet.
www. Yeah, that clip.
Oh, we're going to learn about the internet today. And so now we're talking about AI, and everyone's kind of like, what does it do? But it's, we're going to have to deal with it, right?
Right. Yeah, we're going to have to deal with it in all its forms. And like I said, the technology keeps maturing in its sophistication and its breadth. And it's hard to talk about AI as a result without getting into the specifics. So how is AI helping forecast the weather? Is it actually delivering the forecast? Sorry, Frank. And so what is happening as a function of how do people pivot? How do people reskill? How do people re-educate is an important question. But the devil really is in the details, is your point. I'll give a for example. I was entering numbers into a spreadsheet, and I said, there are this many minutes, there are this many seconds, and then I had a column called total, and AI jumped in. I didn't type a formula to calculate the total. I didn't ask it. It just did it. It just auto-populated what the total was. So it took that task away from me, and I thought that was great. It saved me time. But what are the other tasks that are happening with AI where time is not saved, or in cases where an employee doesn't know that it made a mistake for lack of knowledge, or for the fact that it was happening under the hood where they couldn't see it. So
Fred,
these are real world details we need to dig into as we dig into AI together.
Fred, we are fascinated by this topic and we want to dig deeper. Unfortunately, we're having a little trouble with your sound. So we're going to let you go right now, and our producers are going to talk to you and try and fix that up so that we can hear you more clearly, and we'll return to the conversation. But I want to thank Fred right now, Fred Oswald, who is a Herbert S. Autry Professor of Social Science at Rice University. We'll come back to that in just a moment.
Great,
yes.
thank you.
And we're going to go back to our top headlines. And we were discussing essentially Senator Ted Cruz, who has chimed in on ABC's dismissal of Jimmy Kimmel. And we also understand that over the weekend, there were some negotiations with ABC and Jimmy Kimmel, which I know Ernie was telling us about them during our meeting.
Yeah, from what I've heard, and if there's an update on this, I haven't heard the latest, but from the last that I heard on it, that Kimmel met with ABC executives or Disney executives at a lawyer's office. So it wasn't at ABC, it wasn't in that. So there is contention there. The understanding was to bring Kimmel back on air, he needed to issue an apology and then make a substantial personal donation to Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization. We have not heard from Kimmel, at least last time I looked. What we have seen is an AI, speaking of AI, an AI-generated supposed video of Kimmel, but I believe it's bits of things Kimmel has said in the past, because he refers to the president in the AI. This is what gives it away, as a former president as opposed to the president. So when you see this, don't get confused. I believe the sentiment is probably what Jimmy Kimmel has said before, but he hasn't responded yet. So I personally don't think Jimmy Kimmel is going to agree to that. I would feel that Jimmy Kimmel believes that what he said was valid for what he was saying, and that to apologize and then make a financial contribution would hurt the Jimmy Kimmel brand and what he stands for when it comes to free speech. Not that he can't support the group and the work it does, not that he can't be sorry for what he said, but I just don't think he would agree to that. I could be wrong, we'll see in time. But there is concern how to bring the show back if he does come back.
And again, 713-440-8870. We would love to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Well, I think that, at least like someone said, I finally really agree with Ted Cruz, and I'm glad that he went forward on that and said, look, this is a slippery slope. You can't have government trying to be the police on what we say and don't say on television.
And Ted Cruz is a recognizable name, and we're pointing to that, but there are many on the right, on the far right even, and in the MAGA world that are supporting the same thing, that are saying what happened here was wrong, that we cannot interfere. You don't have to like free speech. You just have to, you don't have to like what the speech is, but you have to support the ability for people to say it. That was what the Republicans ran on. It was a big part of their platform.
Very anti-cancel culture.
Right.
Very, very much. Because I do believe that a lot of Republicans and a lot of people on the right feel like whenever COVID was happening, they were essentially silenced when they were having questions about health and looking at things, and they felt like they were not being...
They were being censored.
They were being censored. Yeah. But again, 713-440-8870. Arlen from Richmond is on the line. Arlen, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Good morning. I am just wondering from each of you how the threats from the Federal Communications Department impacts the way you conduct interviews and also how you respond when we call in. I know quite a few people are just scared to make comments. How does that impact your job?
Thank you, Arlen, for your question.
Yeah, I would say, well, either of you want to go first? Go ahead. I would say from my point of view, that I feel like what I have always done and continue to do is hear what people have to say. And so I am interested in the reaction and the opinions of our callers and our guests, and that has always superseded my opinion and feelings on here. What I try and also do is be, and I hate to use the term devil's advocate, but oftentimes if I hear an argument going away where I think there's an alternate view on it, it doesn't have to be mine, but it is important to bring it up. In the Charlie Kirk situation, I think we have been in the right in how we are covering it, in talking about what was said. I think for me personally, I probably step back from editorializing anything on my beliefs of what his organization stood for or did, because I don't think this is the time for it. I think a man was shot and killed. An outrageous crime was committed, and as a nation, we should all be shocked. Is this the time to analyze every little thing he said? You can do that to any person who has passed away and look at the good and the bad of their life. But this is a very concerning situation right now. And for me, it's a bigger issue about free speech has been born from it. I don't know if that was just a word salad. I hope not. And I hope I addressed your question.
I would say for me as a journalist, my job is to research, write, and report, and to gather information. And a part of that gathering information is looking to other news outlets, looking to our sources, and gathering and bringing that to the forefront to allow our listeners to make their own decisions. But I feel like here on Hello Houston, a lot of times, if we're going to be talking about SB 1328, and that might be the recent passage of, ivermectin. I don't think it was that exact bill, but if we're talking about a bill, I'm also going to bring to the forefront the other information that I know about other bills that are affecting people, not just from that standpoint. So it is an interesting time to be in such a public role, but as a journalist, I stick to my North Star, which is research, write, and report. And we are going to, at least from my perspective, always try to give you information that is complete.
Not me. I'm as subjective as it can get. I mean, I try to learn what I can learn, and then I'm standing up a lot of times for the other side. And I think somebody has to. I don't think it's right that we put the 10 Commandments in the schools. I don't think we should force teachers to do that. I can't see any good thing that comes out of that. For instance, the attack on LGBTQ rights and DEI agendas in schools has been very forthright, and I'm against it. Somebody has to say that, or we're just going to get steamrolled by the right.
And as we wrap up this call and then go back to our guests, I just want to say this show was built to be a slightly different type of show for an NPR audience, in which we were asked to comment on the news with our thoughts and our beliefs and our feelings. But we can still do it from a journalistic point of view, and we're trying to find that balance in what we put out for you every day. I do appreciate the call. Thank you, Arlen, for calling in and asking us that question. And so let's take us back into Fred.
And yes, a second ago we were talking with Fred Oswald, the Herbert S. Autry Professor of Social Sciences at Rice University, about AI and how it is affecting the labor market. Fred, welcome back to Hello Houston.
Hey, thanks for having me back again. I hope the sound is better this time around.
Much better.
Finally, you got the three of us to agree on something.
Much better. So, Fred, we were kind of having a general conversation about AI and, just how it's affecting us. But you specifically, when we look at the labor market, you're saying that it's going to be more about what jobs it potentially could be taking away. And you used a law firm as an example. What else can you tell us about the labor market and artificial intelligence and the effects of it?
Sure. Yeah, I mentioned jobs could be taken away as a function of AI. That's the rampant fear. New jobs could be created at the same time. But I think a lot of jobs will be in between, right? Jobs will transform as a function of AI, taking on certain roles as a part of one's larger job. I'm not saying, hey, there's no need to panic. What I am saying is we all need to be more adaptable in our work and see when AI is coming up on the horizon within our particular jobs. You don't need me saying that. Everybody is trying to do that in navigating their career paths. And the devil really is in the details on how that affects individuals in the workforce within particular jobs. There is research talking about which jobs maybe are more immune to AI or less affected by AI, which are often more physically, kind of jobs that AI robots won't take over in the near future, such as welding or plumbing and so on. And then jobs that might be more affected by AI, particularly with the ChatGPT type models that are more language based, that might do some writing for you, or that kind of higher level writing that we never thought technology could take over, but indeed they can write in a relatively sophisticated manner, and our job might be more of an editor of that output from AI in some jobs, rather than having to generate the text in the first place.
Fred, you kind of just got toward the question I wanted to ask. We talk about, these fears about it, but as a job review, how is AI doing taking on these jobs? Is it truly replacing the human worker? Are they more accurate? Are they better? Are they more cost effective? Or are we finding, as we did in early AI, you can't trust the results all the time? The images have extra fingers. What is happening in the reality of it?
Yeah, well, that is the key question. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not that AI should be compared against perfection. and to complain when AI is imperfect. Instead, it's to say, well, is AI doing better than we have done as humans? And could AI maybe not replace humans, but supplement in terms of decision making? An example would be medical decision making, where AI may be calling better shots than humans in some aspects, like I don't know, but let's say radiology, looking at scans, AI may be able to detect any anomalies more quickly and effectively. I don't know if that's the case, and it might depend on the disease, et cetera. Whereas humans may be able to make decisions on these complicated cases that AI hasn't had the opportunity to train itself on and understand those cases. So it really kind of varies in terms of what decisions have to be made, and whether humans need to take that role or AI. But we shouldn't force perfection on AI, but we should see what kinds of errors it's making, and what are the costs of the errors? What's the cost of making an error may be more serious in some jobs, obviously, than others. Neurology, making a mistake doing brain surgery is more serious than a minor linguistic slip when you're having a conversation trying to get your airline ticket rescheduled.
Right. Fred Oswald is the Hubert S. Autry Professor of Social Sciences at Rice University and a current member of the National Artificial Intelligence Advisory Committee. Fred, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Coming up, we're going to discuss art installations at Discovery Green. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Houston.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Days from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. With the generous support from our founding sponsor, Kathy Sanders.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting for the first time in company history Puccini's trio of one-act operas. Il Tridico, featuring one of opera's most famous songs, O mio babbino caro. Tickets available at hgo.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Recently, Discovery Green unveiled a new temporary art installation for the fall season called Chroma Collective. This new installation from Houston-based artist Karen Navarro blends two-dimensional imagery, three-dimensional sculptures, and mirrored surfaces to explore the fluidity of identity, while at the same time reflecting the people and environment around it. Chroma Collective will be on display at Discovery Green, the Seraphim Picnic Lawn, through November 2nd. To tell us more, please welcome back to the program Houston-based artist Karen Navarro, and joining us for the first time, Discovery Green Marketing Director Frankie Ortega. Thank you both for being here today on Hello Houston.
Nice.
Thank you so much for having us.
Frankie, let me just jump in and start with the question that, Discovery Green has a reputation for the public art that it puts out there that engages the community. What made this project a good fit for you folks?
That's right. So we are known for the public art projects that we have, but our mission really is about supporting Houston artists and spreading awareness of Houston artists. So with Art Lab, we created a program to support and fund Houston artists that want to create these kinds of large-scale public art installations. That's what Art Lab was all about. We partnered with Weingarten Art Group, and they found Jen Lewin, who is a large-scale public artist in Brooklyn. She's done Burning Man. She was the first woman to do the large-scale Burning Man. She did Burning Man last year. She joined in on this program to be a mentor to some Houston artists. So 63 Houston artists applied. Karen Navarro was chosen, and Gerardo Rosales were chosen to go through this program. At the end of it, they created a couple of art installation proposals, and we were just thrilled with both of them. And we chose Karen's for this fall installation, and it's been just so gorgeous, so gorgeous.
So, Karen, this installation is called Chroma Collective, and it's supposed to be exploring the fluidity of identity. As an artist, what did that mean to you?
So I initially wanted to explore my own identity, keep exploring my own identity, as I am a woman immigrant from Argentina of indigenous and European descent. So I'm always very interested in this place in between that I inhabit, what that means for me, and also just moving here to the U.S., living in Houston. I just recently had a kid. My husband is from Romania. So a lot of this syncretism, like cultural syncretism, is happening also in my life, in my day-to-day, but also in the city, right? We are one of the most diverse cities in the U.S. Like Houston ranks as the number one. And so I wanted to include also that in the work by including other people who were invited to participate through an open call. So actually, Discovery Green asked me if I will open up a little bit the concept to include more more diversity. And then I decided, okay, well, that's going to be very hard, because how can I represent that in only 4 to 6 portraits, right? I don't want to fall into stereotypes. I didn't want to choose who is going to represent what. And so to avoid that, to eliminate that completely, what I did was I opened a call and people submitted interest, and then from that I separated into cultural groups, and then I picked one just from each of them. And that's how Chroma Collective came about this cultural mix, about identity, about the fluidity, about community, about all moving to the same direction.
So I haven't seen it in person, but I looked it up online. How would you, if you were trying to tell someone what this art installation looks like, how would you do it?
How would I do it? So one of the things that I find so interesting about Karen's work is she's a photographer.
Right.
So she takes these portraits, which are 2D, and then she pulls out and makes 3D sculptures out of them. And they're interactive. So what they are is they're prisms, 6 feet tall prisms that the public can then interact with and move them. One side of the prism actually has a reflective surface. So she's talking about the diversity of Houston. The diversity of Houston actually shows up in the piece when people are moving it.
Yeah.
And so then the portraits that she took are a little bit fragmented, and as people move it, they can create their own images and arrange them the way they want them.
And there seem to be about, 30 of these prisms sort of snaking around the lawn. Is that right?
Yes. I can't remember right now the number. Like my mind is blank, but I know we have 93 panels. That divided by 3, 32. Yeah. So 32.
A little bit of math. Yeah.
Karen, what does it mean to you as a Latina, as an immigrant in this country, as somebody who is a mother? What does it mean to you to have this piece of art that you made with your hands, to see other people seeing their reflection within this piece?
Yeah, it's been amazing, for a lack of a better word, but it's been great to be able to take my practice to the public spaces. I'm always saying that art should be accessible, and there is something that my art does, and I work with beauty. Beautiful. And beauty is
universal. So
beauty is universal. That is, I think I have to pause you right there because that is the perfect place to end. Karen Navarro is a Houston-based artist. Frankie Ortega is the marketing director of Discovery Green. Thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston, and beauty is universal. Coming up, we'll continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Texas Fine Craft Show, benefiting the Woodlands Arts Council's Cultural and Educational Arts Program in Montgomery County, September 26th through 28th at the Woodlands Waterway Marriott Hotel. Information and tickets at thewoodlandsartscouncil.org.
88 degrees at the University of Houston. I'm Tiffany Taylor. Looking at a 40% chance of thunderstorms through this afternoon. Lows tonight in the upper 70s. This is your NPR station. KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll continue diving into today's top stories, including the Texas Democratic Party opening 4 new offices across the state to better compete with Republicans. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Ernie Manous. And with September being Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, we'll talk with a urologist from Houston Methodist West who will discuss the risks, the signs, and what men need to know to stay ahead of this disease.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Plus, we'll also learn about CAR T-cell therapy and how it's being used to treat certain types of cancers.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to hellohouston.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A social media post from President Trump is fueling concerns about weaponizing the Justice Department. Over the weekend, Trump urged Attorney General Pam Bondi to move quickly to prosecute his political enemies. He named former FBI Director James Comey, Senator Adam Schiff, and New York Attorney General Letitia James. The day before, he ousted the federal prosecutor who declined to file charges against Comey and James. NPR's Ryan Lucas has more.
Trump talked openly during the 2024 campaign about going after his perceived political enemies if he returned to office. He's never toned that down, but this is arguably the most direct, since he's been back in the White House, that he has urged the Justice Department to use the enormous powers that it has to go after specific people who he doesn't like. You also have him forcing out a U.S. attorney who wasn't doing that. For decades, there's been a norm against this very sort of thing.
NPR's Ryan Lucas reporting. The UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting on Russian incursions into Estonia's airspace, and diplomats are accusing Russia of escalating attacks even as President Trump tries to promote peace. More from NPR's Michelle Kellerman.
Estonia called the meeting after reporting that 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets violated its airspace last week in a dangerous escalation. Estonia's foreign minister says it was the 4th violation of its airspace this year. British Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is accusing Russian President Vladimir Putin of, quote, imperialist warmongering.
And to President Putin, I say, your reckless actions risk a direct armed confrontation between NATO and Russia.
Russia's ambassador dismissed the Europeans as Russophobes and said they are paranoid. European leaders say Russia has been violating the UN Charter in its war in Ukraine. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the United Nations.
A new analysis shows many countries are producing more than twice as much in fossil fuels than would be consistent with their climate change goals. NPR's Jeff Brady reports even more coal, oil, and gas production is expected in the coming years.
Researchers examined data for the 20 most polluting countries, including China, the U.S., and India.
China now expects to reduce coal production more slowly than in a similar report in 2023. The U.S. has pulled back from its climate commitments under the Trump administration. Derek Brockhoff is senior scientist at the nonprofit research group Stockholm Environment Institute.
This means that reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions in the second half of the century will require cutting fossil fuel production and use to the very lowest levels possible.
The report comes as countries prepare to meet for the annual UN Climate Conference in November, this year in Brazil. Jeff Brady, NPR News.
The Dow is up 68 points. This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. The prosecution is expected to rest its case today in the trial for a man accused of shooting and killing a 9-year-old girl 3 years ago. Tony Earls Jr. is charged with manslaughter. He's accused of gunning down 9-year-old Arlene Alvarez after getting robbed at an ATM. Authorities say he fired shots at a car he thought the suspected shooter was driving. However, it was a family inside instead. Alvarez was hit and killed. Earls is in court right now and will bring you the latest on that case later today here on News 88.7. Texas farmers could see a third year of losses despite having a strong harvest. News 88.7's Rob Salinas reports that's because some overseas markets are looking for other suppliers.
The good news is that many Texas farmers are reporting a strong harvest. The bad news is there's not a strong market for what they're growing because of the global tariff war. Dr. Mark Welch is an economist with Texas A&M AgriLife.
Do we have access to all of the markets that we need, given that we've got a lot of crop, it needs a home?
Welch says overseas buyers are key for Texas farmers.
We export 40% of our soybeans, 40% of our wheat, 40% of our rice, 30% of our grain sorghum, 15 to 20% of our corn.
Making matters worse is the cost of production has increased because of inflation. Welch says it's possible many Texas farmers won't make it through another year without federal intervention. I'm Rob Salinas, News 88.7.
The Astros are on the verge of missing the playoffs. The team was swept over the weekend by the Seattle Mariners, losing yesterday by a score of 7-3. The team is tied with the Cleveland Guardians for the last playoff spot, with Cleveland holding the tiebreaker. Astros manager Joe Espada says the team must perform as they head to California for a series against the A's.
You know, we got 6 to go, 6 big ones. We play really well on the West Coast. And we need to bring it, man. This is crunch time. This is when you play your best.
The Astros have not missed the playoffs since 2016. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for dedicated and forward-thinking individuals to join their growing team. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
And we are back with you again. It is the noon hour. Celeste, what's the date?
Today is September 22nd, 2025. Can you guys believe it?
So fast.
No, it feels like September flew by.
The 22nd of the month is always a good day for me. I was born June 22nd.
That's right, you're a numbers person.
I started in television on September 22nd, 1982. Came to Houston April 22nd. I don't know. Do you have a day like that?
Not really.
No? Or a period in time that... You know,
September 1st, because it's my birthday, and that's all.
And that's it?
And that's what makes it a great
We're glad
day.
you were born.
The thing is, your birthday,
Thank you,
so
Frank.
your birthday, you know, it's a day that gets to be yours. My birthday, I was born on Thanksgiving, November 28th. And so every day it rotates. So I don't even get my own birthday.
Well, see, that's funny because I have Labor Day is around my birthday, and sometimes it falls on my birthday, sometimes it doesn't. Thanksgiving is the same. So it's not really, you weren't born on a holiday, but you're born in the neighborhood of a holiday, which is a weird, but then it's better than being born like December 25th, where you really got to share it with another holiday.
My sister is December 22nd, which we're not thinking about. You were thinking about Christmas. And Dan is January 2nd. Everybody's hungover from the New Year's.
It tells us a lot about your group of friends.
I know.
So now I know why my birthday's so special.
It is, because it's just about you. You got a good one.
And it's June. Everybody has saved their money so they can give me a present. I always felt bad for my sister, December 10th. It was always like, well, here's both your Christmas and your birthday present. Yeah.
All right. Well, talking about dates, it's almost fall. Yes, in a matter of like an hour and 10 minutes, it will be fall, which I think is very funny that we have an exact time that it switches to fall.
It's it's the autumnal equinox when the sun's right over the equator. So it's easy to be able to figure that out, to be honest.
So at 1:19 today, you can put on your sweaters because now it's fall. You can put away the summer clothes and move into the fall clothes.
Well, we do have a front coming. We have a front coming Wednesday. It's going to rain Wednesday. The front's going to come through. The winds are going to shift. It'll be out of the north. We'll have temperatures of the 60s for lows and
I love
mid and upper 80s for highs, but it'll be a dry, nice feeling. Thursday, Friday, Saturday should all be in great shape.
Well, I went and got my pumpkin spice latte. I do this every year at the start of the fall. I went to Trader Joe's. I got my cinnamon broom, and then I realized very quickly how I don't even like pumpkin spice latte.
But you gotta do it. Now, see, I like now that you folks are talking about date and time, because I always feel like October 1st I can move into fall. So I kind of wait and try and hold off till October 1st. But I've already got my pumpkin spice syrup for my morning coffee. And I'm ready and waiting, but maybe today I can do it.
You can do it. Well, probably Thursday morning or Friday you can for sure. Yeah. I think it's going to feel really good. And I've been saying that this was our chance of getting a September front because it's been such a rainy summer. We haven't had a big high pressure system to just block everything. And so that's coming true. We're going to get this September front in the next couple of days. And then it looks like another one will follow that. The good news about fronts moving across the Gulf this time of year is any hurricane threat that does show up usually gets pulled away from us by the front.
We're so close to the end of all this.
We are so close.
Tick-tock, tick-tock. As we go into the stories, before we hit that, I just want to ask a question to all of our listeners. I've got my big Halloween inflatables. When can I put those out?
Oh, I think you can start.
Today? Can I put them out October 1st? Should I wait till like 2 weeks from Halloween? When is the right time to do this? Let us know. Okay, Celeste.
Let us know. 713-440-8870. When should Ernie put out his holiday decorations?
That's what we want to know. And on to lesser important news, but the headlines of the day. Celeste, take us away.
Governor Greg Abbott on Wednesday signed a bill making ivermectin, a drug used mostly in this country to treat livestock for parasites, available to Texans without a prescription. Texas is now the 5th state to approve the over-the-counter sale of the drug after it became popular as an unproven treatment for COVID-19. The bill does not put ivermectin on pharmacy shelves, but the drug would be available upon request from behind the pharmacist counter, as Texans already do for other drugs like Sudafed. The law takes effect December 4th. State Senator Bob Hall, a Republican of Edgewood, introduced the bill during Senate floor discussions in August. But Democrats were quick to point to ivermectin's history in this country as a veterinary drug to treat parasites in livestock. This is a quote from Senator Roland Gutierrez, a Democrat of San Antonio, who said, "Let's be clear. This is a drug that is used on horses, donkeys, correct? It is FDA approved for being prescribed by a doctor for the use of parasites only." During a visit to the Texas Capitol in August, U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. applauded lawmakers' attempts to make ivermectin more accessible. What are your thoughts on the accessibility of this drug? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can also send us a text at that same number.
It does have a history. I actually have a friend who has prostate cancer and is taking ivermectin for prostate cancer. His doctor doesn't know he's doing that. So I'm going to leave it there. But I'm going to ask the doctor in our next segment about this.
Right.
Because ivermectin is supposedly a cure for some cancers. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I don't play one on the radio. So I check with your own doctor before you take any advice from this station. That's for sure.
I do play a doctor on the radio, not a real doctor, but ivermectin is a useful antiparasitic medicine when prescribed and dosed appropriately for approved infections. It can cause mild side effects in many users and rare but serious reactions in some. Major public health agencies do not recommend its use for COVID-19 outside of clinical trials. So avoid veterinary formulations and self-medication. Discuss any questions about ivermectin with your clinician or pharmacist.
Well, didn't President Trump in his first term recommend ivermectin against COVID?
There was a lot of talk about ivermectin for COVID, but it has proven to be unsuccessful as a treatment for COVID, but that doesn't stop people from believing it.
You know, looking at it more from a policy perspective, I think it's very poignant that ivermectin is now over the counter while access to abortion pills are now being restricted. It's important that we understand that just as the bill for ivermectin to go into law was signed by Governor Abbott, that same day on Thursday, September 8th, Senate Bill 2880, also known as the Texas Abortion Pill Bill, was signed into law by Governor Greg Abbott, which restricts access to abortion pills in Texas by making it more difficult for individuals to obtain them and by imposing legal penalties on those who provide or assist in their distribution.
So what you're saying is we can have all the ivermectin we want, but we can't have access to an abortion pill. Is that what you're saying? I'm
saying that it's interesting to me that we will have elected officials within our state who will go back a drug, a pharmaceutical drug that potentially, if not used for the right purposes, can be very harmful to an individual. Yet they are restricting perhaps a woman who may have been raped and might need access to an abortion pill. That is now going to be even more penalized. And that's just a food for thought. On the same day that ivermectin was signed into law to be more accessible to people, we also had Senate Bill 2880, which, and I think that is important that we always understand, just as some things are being pushed for accessibility, there are other places where people are pushing for restriction. Again, 713-440-8870.
But that's a moral standpoint, the abortion pill, right? I mean, that's people's morals are in play there. And ivermectin isn't. So it's kind of apples to oranges. I can't figure out why ivermectin is even allowed behind the counter. Who would want it?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily making that comparison. I'm just, again, as a journalist, I was reading the bills that were being, put. There was also SB 2880.
Yeah. We should, with any medication, if your doctor doesn't recommend you take it, you shouldn't be taking it. One of our YouTubers, Fritz, writes in, I give my dog ivermectin, which is a recognized way to prevent heartworm. Why anyone that doesn't have a parasite would take it is beyond me.
I'm with you, Fritz. I don't know either.
Again, 713-440-8870. We do have a call. Megan from the Woodlands. Megan, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Hey, y'all. Happy to be here. My comment is a little broad, but, generally speaking, I'm lucky my sister-in-law is a physician, and so we get to have somebody on call in our household. But the general consensus is, you wouldn't trust somebody who's not a pilot to fly a plane. And so when it comes to access to medical care and everything kind of encompassed with that, I don't know why you wouldn't trust something that hasn't been truly vetted, truly studied, and it's coming from pure advice from your physician and not just some hunch that's kind of leftover remnants from, the political minutia from COVID.
Megan, thank you for your comments. I think part of the ivermectin argument is that it is available in feed stores and animal care stores that you can get it for your livestock if they have parasites. So the idea that if it's available in one place, why can't it be available other places? The problem is, and then there is the history of off-label use of medications, which oftentimes doctors will recommend a drug for you to use that wasn't necessarily approved for the particular ailment that you have, but they have seen studies that show it does. Ivermectin is a little more questionable because they have done checks and they have done research on it, and it doesn't prove to be effective against COVID-19. And also, when you take it in the veterinary sense, it's a much larger dose, and if humans don't know proper dosing, they could really cause themselves harm.
Well, they're making human-grade tablets. Merck is behind it, the pharmaceutical giant Merck. I just don't understand why the governor would say this is fine, or any lawmaker, would just say, "Oh yeah, let's just give it to humans." I mean, did they have doctors testify? Did doctors come in and say something?
I think, though, I do want to, I feel like I this is on my mind, and that I do know that there are people that have chronic ailments, and sometimes people get into a place where they're desperate, and they've been going to doctors, and they've been seeking help, and they're not necessarily getting what they need from a regular, traditional Western medicine. And so our healthcare system. So I feel for people genuinely that are at a place where they're like, you know what, I tried this and for some reason it helped me. Obviously move with caution, but it's just very interesting that here we have ivermectin of all of the things that now is available and accessible. But again, 713-440-8870. We do have a call on the line from Kristen from the Woodlands. Kristen, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. I think you can hear us.
Kristen.
Hello.
Hi, yes, I'm calling from the Woodlands. I was just calling to make a comment. I had a patient whose wife had a very form of cancer, and they tried everything, and it was just getting worse and worse. And the doctor had offhandedly mentioned ivermectin. He didn't recommend it, but he did mention it. And the husband went to the feed store and he bought it and he gave it to his wife, and she is now in remission.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, my friend with prostate cancer swears that it's helping.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Kristen, are you a doctor?
No, I'm actually a nurse.
Okay. Would you know by any chance, have there been studies of ivermectin's effect on cancer? Do you know of any of those?
I am actually a neurology nurse, so I don't see a whole lot of cancer patients, so I'm not familiar.
I'd be curious to see if it's had effect, if we're hearing anecdotal ideas behind its effectiveness. I wonder if there's some there. We often find, that's the whole thing with Ozempic, how it came into the world, and it's being used for a bunch of different things now, but that wasn't its original intent. Yes, Celeste, you were saying?
We did also receive a YouTube comment that says ivermectin is approved for humans in some dermatological cases, so it's safe in the right doses. It's not just for livestock, but this is not for anyone and everyone to take in whatever way you please. That was from Nicole. Thank you for chiming in, Nicole, on YouTube.
It is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and coming up on the show, we're going to be talking with a urologist, but we can ask some of these cancer questions that are coming up about that. I'd be curious to hear.
Well, and the text says, I just had a discussion with my doctor about prostate cancer screening, and he's of the opinion, this doctor is of the opinion, that prostate is not an aggressive form of cancer, and that most people who have prostate cancer end up leaving long. Either way, I think he's trying to say, leave it alone, or either way, they die of other causes. And I've had doctors say that prostate cancer is usually something you die with, not from. Mm-hmm. But that's not entirely true. It depends on the aggressiveness of it, and it can spread to your bones. And once it's in your bones, there's nothing you can do about it other than treat it. Now, I'm not a doctor. We're going to talk to one.
We'll be talking a lot more about
but we have a lot of
up.
questions for Dr. Mobley about this, for sure.
Today is, as we mentioned, September 22nd. It's National Ice Cream Cone Day.
Thank
is everyone
goodness.
Gonna
I've been waiting. Did you bring any?
No.
Who brought the ice cream cones?
It's also National States and Capitals Day. And that makes me think back to when we were kids in the car rides. One of the games that my dad and my brother used to play is say a state, say the capital, say a state. And they were really good at it. I never was. I never played.
I'm not great at capitals. I know where all the states are.
Well, I would hope so. When you stand in front of those maps, it's important that you do that.
It's also the first day of Rosh Hashanah.
Right. It's very exciting. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Time for atonement, everyone. Get out there and, reflect. It's going to be a time of reflection for inner transformation.
Yeah, because people think of Jewish New Year and they're like, Happy New Year. And that's not. It's a new year to atone for the sins of the past year and try to set yourself right for the new year. Right. It's not like like Dan's hangover birthday.
It begins the Jewish High Holy Days, 10-day period, days of awe, time for self-reflection, and it ends with Yom Kippur coming up. So happy thoughtfulness on Rosh Hashanah. Yes, important time of the year.
It is.
Also, the UN General Assembly begins today. They come together once a year, and world leaders come in for this to discuss issues facing the world. The UN in Manhattan, of course. Some questions in the past about visas and the ability for people to come in for the UN. It'll be interesting to see what they are going to address. It seems as though Palestine is on the table, Palestinian state, and that'll be one thing they'll be talking about in the UN.
All right.
But something we're going to be talking about coming up on Hello Houston. September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and we'll talk with Dr. David Mobley, a urologist at Houston Methodist West, to talk about the risks, the signs, and what men need to know to stay healthy and ahead of this disease. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
In This American Life, immigration judges usually don't talk to reporters, but a bunch agreed to go on the record with us to describe what it has been like to do their jobs under the current Trump administration. Pressure to decide cases in the government's favor, firings.
It was an assault. It was like an old medieval castle that was under siege. They were slowly cutting off our food supply. Now they're cutting off our air supply.
That's this week.
Whether your weekend is full of work or play, recharging or catching up, life doesn't stop. And the news and the stories that impact your life every day, they don't slow down. All Things Considered is here every Saturday and Sunday to bring you the news and help you lighten up with the latest in music, movies, and books. Join us for thoughtful conversations and reporting that keeps you in the know and your weekend rolling.
All Things Considered Weekend, Saturdays and Sundays at 4 p.m. on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe, R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul, music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, a community with a variety of living options, from new construction, mature neighborhoods, and urban living, designed for any lifestyle. More at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well, September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, a time to spotlight a disease that affects millions of men, yet often goes undiscussed. Prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death among American men, with about 1 in 8 facing a diagnosis at some point in their lives. And while age is a major risk factor, more men in their 40s and 50s are being diagnosed than ever before. Houston Methodist West Hospital is encouraging men of all ages to take proactive steps. That includes learning the risks, getting screened. As they say, know your numbers. Have open conversations about prostate health. Early detection can make all the difference, really with any cancer, but especially prostate cancer. There are newer, less invasive treatments that are available. And to tell us about some of those is Dr. David Mobley, a urologist at Houston Methodist West, to talk about these risks and signs and what men need to know to stay ahead of the game. Welcome to Hello Houston, Dr. Mobley. And I'm not hearing you. So
I believe you might be muted.
I think your microphone might be muted. I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear you. So let's find that. Try it again. I'm interested to know what you have to say.
But it's interesting. Earlier we were talking a little bit about prostate cancer, and Frank, you had prostate cancer.
I did. Yes, 2018 I was diagnosed.
Do you consider it you had or have?
Well, so far so good. I still have PSMA screenings, which is a very fancy screening and to see if there's any prostate cancer in your entire body. It'll show up, it'll glow, and so far that has not happened. So, but you never know.
And let's check in with Dr. Mobley. Dr. Mobley, are you there?
We still cannot hear him.
For some reason, we can't hear him.
We're hearing you're up on our board. It seems to be. Check your mic again if you can, your connection. Okay, we're going to reconnect with the doctor. So,
But Frank, how old were you whenever you were diagnosed?
Well, I was 57, and it's funny because
that feels pretty young.
Yeah. Well, anytime over the age of 50, you should be screened.
Okay.
And if you're African American, anytime after age 40. It's very prevalent in the African American community. So I was talking to Dominique, and
Dominique
Saxa. I'm sorry, Dominique Saxa from Channel 2. And she had this doctor she swore by, great doctor, just to kind of go and get everything looked at, get on the right vitamin trail, all of that. And so I did, and everything looked good except my PSA was a 27 or something. It was sky high. Anything over a 4 is concerning.
Okay.
Anything over a 10 is alarming. And mine was 27. And so, of course, I immediately got a biopsy. They found some cancer. And then I went to try to decide what to do about it, which is either remove it or radiate it. And so the PSA was so high there, they weren't really convinced that doing things like cryotherapy or brachytherapy was a good idea. So while I'm doing that, Orlase, which is a company that uses gold nanoparticles to infuse into your body. Those nanoparticles, this is an experiment, still does not have FDA approval yet, but we're hoping. The gold nanoparticles, they are rejected by healthy cells, but cancer cells take them in. Then you go in with a light and you cause those nanoparticles to vibrate and ablate the cancer tissue.
And so that was. Now, were you working the entire time during this? I mean, did you have any
I
physical
only took 3
side
days
effects?
Off. I took 3 days off.
Really? So you never felt like your hair didn't fall? You didn't go through the full process?
No. And prostate cancer, your hair doesn't fall out because you're not on chemo.
And so, which is so interesting, right? Because when my mom had breast cancer, the chemo drug that they give breast cancer patients is one of the harshest on your aesthetic, on your body. Yeah. It's
Frank,
really
I want to
sad.
go back to if you hadn't seen the numbers. Would you have had any sign? Did you feel anything? Did you notice anything?
No. We can hear Dr.
So it was
Mobley.
the numbers that actually
Hi, Dr.
did
Mobley,
it for
are you there?
I believe we can hear you now, Dr. Mobley. Welcome to Hello Houston.
But can he hear us? Now that we've
I
got
don't
his
think
mic
he
fixed.
can hear us.
Yeah. And now I think he's frozen.
We will come back to Dr. Mobley, the urologist at
But I want to go
Houston
back
Methodist
to the point
West.
with Frank, though. Had it not been for the numbers, having seen the numbers, you would have had no sign, no understanding that this was going on.
Correct. I didn't have any symptoms like having to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I didn't have any weak stream when going to the bathroom, which are sometimes signs of something going on with the prostate. There was really nothing that would have indicated that I had prostate cancer. Now, I did find my biological father had prostate cancer. And if your father or even a brother or an uncle, and an uncle on either side of your family, mother's brother or father's brother, if you have prostate cancer in your family that direct, then your chances are about 50% higher.
Wow. Dr. Mobley, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Finally,
yes.
Welcome to Hello Houston.
Okay, we've been talking about prostate cancer. First of all, thank you for being here. We're going to jump right in. What do men need to know, and at what age?
If you have no family history of prostate cancer, and then the starting age should be late 40s or around age 50. Screening basically with a PSA blood test is the way to start. If you are African American or have a family history, close family history, father, brother, grandfather, mid-40s is a good time to start testing. And that essentially is a PSA blood test plus or minus a digital prostate exam.
Quick question there, just to clarify what you said. You said if your family, close relative, has a history of prostate cancer, if they have a history of cancer in general, if there's other cancers, should you still be looking early?
No, there's no increased risk from other cancers that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So what do you think about ivermectin in cancer? I do have a friend who has prostate cancer, and not at his doctor's advice, but he's taking ivermectin and swears that he's in better shape because of it. Have you ever heard of this?
It might be true. Unfortunately, there's no data, no meaningful data. I don't know if there ever will be. There may be some studies underway at this time, and somebody may come up with the idea of doing some studies. It would be a very hard kind of study to undertake, but I don't know of any data that would support that treatment.
Doctor, let's take a step back a little bit. We were talking about this while we were waiting to connect with you, and we were talking with Frank about what would you notice to know if you had prostate cancer besides the numbers. For Frank, what showed it was he saw his test results, and those numbers were high. Any way that we may find out, or is it too late once you start having effects that tell you something's wrong?
With most cancers in their early stages, there are little or no symptoms, and that's why screening for cancer is so important. And this is true in prostate cancer as well. There really are no symptoms that would alert a man to having trouble. As men get older, their urination patterns change, their urine flow decreases, they start getting up at night, but none of those are symptoms of cancer. So it's all about screening.
So make sure you get screened.
I guess my question would be then, at what age should men start to start their screening specifically? I know that you mentioned, it's important for African-American men specifically, but what is that age?
Mid to late 40s, but certainly by age 50. You want to get just a screening PSA test. And let's say hypothetically a 47-year-old gets a screening PSA test and it's very, very normal. He may not need to be tested again for 3 to 5 years. But if there's anything abnormal in that test, it would alert him and his physician that maybe we need to follow this more closely or delve into more diagnostic studies.
And let me just jump in, because we throw PSA around like it's prostate specific antigen is what that stands for, and your prostate can show that in your bloodstream in any regular blood test. So if you go in for your cholesterol and your glucose and whatever you go in for, throwing in a PSA test is simple. So it's no big deal. And most urology offices can do that for you right there while you're sitting in the doctor's office. So they can handle it. You just gotta do it.
We do them right here in our office.
Yeah, simple.
Many times a day.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, right, Dr. Mobley, because I feel like as women, we have an OBGYN, we go to our gynecologist regularly, but should men be seeing a specific urologist regularly as their physical checkup?
If they are at risk, if their PSAs are elevated, then they should be seeing a urologist. If their PSA tests are normal, there's no family history, and they're not having urinary symptoms that would necessitate a visit to a urologist. In most cases, a primary care physician can take care of this on a yearly basis very well.
Great.
If you go for a colonoscopy, is that going to reveal anything here, or do you have to have the other tests?
A colonoscopy will not. Now, the gastroenterologist or colorectal surgeon that's doing the colonoscopy will oftentimes do a digital finger. And what we mean by that is a gloved finger into the rectum to feel the prostate. But sometimes they will feel, as they're doing their exam, they will feel something abnormal in the prostate at the same time they're doing a colonoscopy and recommend a follow-up with a urologist. I've seen a number of cases like that, and I applaud the gastroenterologist for doing such a good job.
So then don't depend on just you say, oh, well, I had my colonoscopy, I must be good. There's something else we need to look at. Yeah.
That's
So
precisely right.
Let's talk about treatments. I mean, I know the standard treatments, but tell everyone what is usually the treatment for prostate cancer, and is there anything that's come up that's new in the last couple of years?
There are some new things. The standard treatments are surgery or radiation. Now, we should mention, and I heard you talking about this earlier before I was muted or unmuted. You mentioned the aggressive issue with prostate cancer. So a lot of cancer, at least a third, maybe more, of the prostate cancer we diagnose does not need treatment. And we put the patient on what we call active surveillance, which means we check them PSA exams, possibly MRI test, possibly another biopsy from time to time, but no active treatment. Mm-hmm. So the active treatments are radiation to the prostate, and there's actually several ways to deliver radiation. There's surgery to remove the prostate. There's a kind of, well, I'll say a laser treatment in effect. There's a heat treatment called HIFU. There's a freezing treatment called cryo. And there's some other investigational treatments ongoing as well.
So obviously a man being diagnosed is going to seek certain ones of those, but isn't it like the Gleason score, which is I guess the aggression score? The more aggressive the cancer seems to be, I guess the fewer options there probably are.
As the cancer gets more and more aggressive, and you mentioned the Gleason scale, and essentially a Gleason scale is done by, or the Gleason scoring is done by the pathologist as they look at the biopsy specimen under a microscope, and they will give a grade from 6 to 10. Fortunately, most of the cancers we see are 6s and 7s, which aren't real aggressive. But as those numbers go up, the treatment becomes more aggressive. For example, if we have a patient with a 9 or 10, and that's a very aggressive cancer, they might need a combination of, for example, surgery to remove their prostate, followed by radiation treatment.
Dr. Mobley, we did. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
I was going to say we go all the way from no treatment necessary to aggressive treatment. And of course, some of the times we find, unfortunately, it's not so much these days because of screening, but we do have men who have the disease metastasize and spread beyond the prostate, as we've heard about President Biden's situation.
Mm-hmm. And we did have a YouTube comment, Dr. Mobley, that I wanted to make sure we got to. Frontline Realtor would like to know why specifically Black men, when we're looking at the PSA testing, what does race play in the role of PSA testing?
What we know, the actual answer to that is unknown, but it's probably in genetics. Mm-hmm. What we do know is that Black men tend to get prostate cancer at a little earlier age, and there is a tendency for more of their cancers to be more on the aggressive side. So almost certainly that's a genetic situation, but it has yet to be defined.
You know, we often talk about, and you've touched on it already, they say, oh, it's a slow-moving cancer, so don't be worried about it. They don't test after a certain age because it's assumed that for the cancer to take effect and to do the harm you'll probably be gone from something else beforehand. But as Frank read in the introduction, it's the second leading cause of death among American men. So how do these two ideas merge together, and how do we make sense when both things are shared with us?
And that's tough. There are recommendations, I'll say, governmental recommendations as such that we don't screen men after about age 70. And as urologists, our general approach is if we have reason to believe that a man has a 10-year lifespan, and obviously we never know that, but if we have reason to believe that he has a 10-year lifespan, screening for prostate cancer is appropriate. If we have a gentleman who's 55, he's diabetic, he's already had a stroke, he's got heart problems, and his future looks bleak, prostate cancer screening is probably not appropriate. On the other hand, if we see an 80-year-old gentleman who's in great health, plays tennis 3 times a week, that gentleman's probably going to be around a while, and screening is likely appropriate.
Let's talk about the side effects. I think the side effects that people know about sort of automatically from prostate cancer surgery and radiation are erectile dysfunction as well as incontinence. And I think that scares men away from wanting to know. They're like, you know what, I'm doing fine without knowing about my prostate, and it's probably not going to be aggressive. And, they just don't want to go there. But both of those things can can be fixed. Incontinence and erectile dysfunction, they can both be fixed.
They can both be fixed. That is exactly right.
So you shouldn't be afraid because of possible side effects not to get tested.
Absolutely not. We do see these side effects, and the possibility of erectile dysfunction after any form of prostate cancer treatment is not prostate treatment. I'm only talking about prostate cancer. The chance of erectile dysfunction is in the 50% range, depending on the treatment. It may be less. I mentioned, for example, HIFU treatment, the heat treatment. It's considerably less with that than it is with surgery. But there's a distinct percentage of men who will develop erectile dysfunction. Now, I will say this too, Frank, a lot of the men that are in the age group that are getting prostate cancer already have those issues. The bigger issue as far as quality of life really is bladder control. If one doesn't have bladder control, it is a miserable affliction. Fortunately, we do have very good treatments when that does happen, but that's only, I shouldn't say only, but because if it's you, it's 100%. But I was going to say it's only 3 to 5% of men after prostate removal that have incontinence problems that persists.
If there is a long genetic history in your family of prostate cancer, would it make sense to just have your prostate removed?
We don't do that. They do that, as you know, with breast cancer.
Right.
But we don't do that with prostate cancer. And part of the reason is it's never been studied as an appropriate treatment. Plus, you remove a prostate that's benign that may never get cancer. And what if they end up with those side effects that we just discussed? You don't want that to happen.
We're speaking with Dr. David Mobley, a urologist at Houston Methodist West. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. And we do have a call from Daniel from Montrose. Daniel, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your question or comment for Dr. Mobley?
Hi, thank you, Celeste.
Sure.
I guess it's a follow-up to the conversation on side effects and quality of life. Maybe if the doctor could tell us what the flip side of what can a person with prostate cancer can look at as symptoms, kind of like when they're weighing. I got this diagnosis of possibly prostate cancer or actually prostate cancer. Is it like, one might say, well, I'll just let nature take its course. It's probably not as simple as that. There might be pain and disability and so on involved without treatment. So if you could talk a little bit about that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Daniel.
So I had a question about the cancer treatment I had from Andrew, because I did the gold nanoparticles, which you may have heard of, Dr. Mobley.
Yes,
And he's asking if I had any incontinence or sexual dysfunction. I did not have sexual dysfunction. I did have incontinence, but the reason is that those nanoparticles found cancer around my sphincter and ablated that cancer, and it affected the sphincter, which is what controls continence. And had I not had that procedure, I would never. No one would have ever found that cancer near the sphincter, because you guys stay away from the sphincter. You only go for the prostate. And I would have still if I'd had an RP, a radical prostatectomy, I would still have cancer.
Ordinarily nowadays, we have a pretty good clue with that, Frank, because doing pre-treatment MRIs is so commonplace. We hardly ever do any invasive treatments like that without an MRI. So with the MRI, we have a pretty good idea. Now, if a prostate is removed and the sphincter is left in place, the pathologist will tell us we have left cancer behind when they examine the prostate tissue. And in that situation, which fortunately is not very often, but in that situation, we will probably treat that area with radiation treatment.
Yeah. And I will say that Dr. David Goldfarb, who's with Methodist, I think you may know him, he performed a sling surgery on me and fixed the incontinence that day. So fortunately, as we were saying earlier, these things can be fixed, and he fixed that for me.
And I think I do want to go back to Daniel from Montrose's question really quickly, Dr. Mobley, to make sure that we get that answered. I think he was basically asking you if somebody has symptoms or they know that they've been diagnosed, and they're trying to weigh, do I get a procedure, a therapy done, or can I just let it kind of go once they've received a diagnosis, when they're evaluating how they should move forward after a diagnosis?
Hopefully, they're going to have a lengthy discussion with their urologist,
Sure,
who will spell that out in detail. Here's your profile, and if we don't do something, here's what the potential outcome is. Because a lot of patients don't need treatment. So if it comes down to the situation, which is more common, where treatment is needed, then I'm hoping the urologist will go over the several possibilities for treatment and the pluses and minuses of each of those treatments.
I will say also, Dr. Mobley, I had a DNA test done on my tissues,
Yes.
and it showed that my cancer was not very aggressive, but a lot of men don't understand. You can do a DNA test on the tissues that will tell you at least a percentage of how aggressive the cancer might be.
Yes, there's several different, we call those genomic testings, and there's several different tests that are out there. And we use those tests a lot when the cancer, the biopsy comes back in the gray zone, where we're not sure, is surveillance adequate, or do we need to move on to definitive treatment? So the genetic testing at that point becomes very, very useful in making a decision which direction to go.
We are speaking with Dr. David Mobley, urologist at Houston Methodist West, about prostate cancer awareness. Our number here is 713-440-8870. Dan is on the line. Dan, what's on your mind today?
Yes, my question is about the PSA test and the accuracy of that test. And the reason I ask the question is because for about 7 or 8 years, my PSA level would go up and down. And I, too, also have Dr. David Goldfarb for my urologist. And he kept an eye on it, and then we eventually did a biopsy, and fortunately turned out to be benign. But I was wondering, I wanted to ask the doctor why those tests can vary so much.
Thank you, Dan, and congratulations on it being benign. Doctor, the PSA test accuracy.
It's accurate. If I
So
knew
then why the fluctuation?
If I knew the answer to the fluctuation question, I would deserve some kind of prize.
Is it true that men...
I'm not requesting a Nobel Prize, but some kind of prize if I could answer that question.
Does
See,
finasteride,
we don't know.
if a man is on finasteride, can that affect a PSA?
Yes, it basically cuts it in half. For example, if your PSA on finasteride, and there's another one just like it, dutasteride, both very similar drugs that cause the prostate to shrink in size. And so if one has a PSA of 2, which is perfectly normal, you have to double that. So the real PSA is 4. So
which is dangerous.
Or dutasteride makes it a little bit false test.
To
but
go
the
back,
test itself, I should emphasize that the number is accurate at a time. It's a very simple test, and the number itself is accurate.
so then I guess the question comes up: if the test is accurate but the number fluctuates, getting a single test does not tell you anything.
It does if it's perfectly normal, but a more common scenario, and I agree with you, is the patient who has a slight elevation or even maybe a serious elevation of PSA. Rarely are we going to jump into some kind of treatment without at least repeating that PSA. I will see patients who have slight elevations in PSA, exam is normal. I feel they probably don't have cancer, and I will say, let's recheck your PSA in, say, 6 weeks. If it comes back normal in 6 weeks, I'll probably say, okay, it looks good. Let me see you again in 6 months. Now, if the follow-up PSA again is not normal, then we have to look at delving into this a little deeper.
Yeah. Just important to be honest with your doctor and sit down and have those conversations. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Mobley.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And coming up, we'll discuss a breakthrough in cancer treatment. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Tonight on Houston.
With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Comes from Miller Outdoor Theater, presenting Roco's 21st season, opening with 2 premiere commissions and more, celebrating the world and its creatures. This Friday, open to the public. MillerOutdoorTheater.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Chimeric antigen receptor, or CAR T cell therapy, is a form of immunotherapy being used to treat certain types of cancer by reprogramming a patient's immune system to attack the actual cancer cells. This once experimental approach has become recognized as a breakthrough in cancer treatment and is credited with helping patients with blood cancers that were thought to be incurable. Additionally, research is currently being done to explore its effectiveness in treating other serious diseases. Joining us now to tell us more about CAR T cell therapy is Dr. Isabelle Rivière, Vice President of Cell Therapy Sciences at Takeda. Dr. Rivière, welcome to Hello Houston. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Hello. Nice speaking with you.
Can you tell us a little bit about I would say like an explainer of what chimeric antigen receptor therapy is and how it came about?
Yes, so these chimeric antigen receptors are actually molecules that we can engineer and that we put on the cells of the immune system, your white blood cells, the cells that surveil your body for viral infections and cancer. And we put these new receptors into these cells and we give them back to the patients. And amazingly, these cells will multiply in the body of the patients. And with this new receptor, which is acting like an antenna, will recognize and kill the cancer cells. And this is a type of living drug which really can multiply itself in the body.
So, Dr. Rivière, are these therapies being done on an experimental basis, or has this been approved and is on a regular platform now?
Yes, so actually these therapies have been approved, the first one in 2017, and there are now 7 of these which have been approved for the treatment of various lymphoma, leukemias, and myelomas. And there are many more right now which are in early experimental trials in other types of cancers, including solid tumors.
Wow. Is this only for adults, or are they're using this CAR T cell therapies for children?
So actually, amazing as these therapies can be used in adults, but also in children. And there have been some amazing results in children who have leukemias and which lives have been saved as they had exhausted all their standard of care. They received these CAR T cell therapies and have been able to live more than 10 years now since the treatment.
If I'm not mistaken, doctor, and please help me with this one, my understanding is that it's been mostly successful, this treatment, with blood cancers. I'm curious what we've seen when it comes to solid tumors, things such as like pancreatic or lung or brain cancer.
Yes, these solid tumors are much more difficult to treat. They seem to create an environment of themselves which are much more difficult for these white blood cells to penetrate. But we are working very hard to find ways for these cells to be able to enter these solid tumors. And there are many trials in, as you said, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, but also in brain cancer, ovarian, and breast, where we are experimenting with these new ways of armoring these cells, and hopefully will prevail.
Where are these experiments happening at? What research hospitals are doing this?
Yeah, there are many of the large university hospitals who are performing these experimental trials, and that's where obviously these trials start and can be then disseminated in other centers once we know how to treat the side effects of these therapies.
So what is the therapy? I mean, do you have to have some sort of infusion every week or every month or just once?
Yeah, and what's amazing is that with this therapy, you can basically take a single infusion, and we have seen many patients who have benefited and either got a cure or a long-term remission with a single infusion.
Oh, wow.
And with less side effects than would chemotherapy, for example, trigger, because they specifically target the cell.
Dr. Isabelle Rivière is the Vice President of Cell Therapy Scientists at Takeda. Dr. Rivière, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for watching, listening, texting, emailing us, and sharing and chatting with us on Hello Houston. We will be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Roco, opening its season with Feels Like Home. Delyana La Rova leads 4 premier